So grab a seat, maybe some popcorn, and let's jump into what makes this movie an absolute gem. First off, let's talk about where it all began. The Rocky Horror Picture Show didn't just pop out of nowhere. It's actually an adaptation of a stage musical called The Rocky Horror Show, which was written by Richard O'Brien. O'Brien, who's not only the writer, but also a key performer in both the stage and film versions, drew inspiration from his love of classic sci-fi and horror films from the 1950s and 60s, mixed with a healthy dose of rock and roll energy. The stage show premiered in London at the Royal Court Theatre upstairs on June 19, 1973, and it was an instant hit in the underground theater scene. Directed by Jim Sharman, who would go on to helm the film as well, the musical ran for weeks and then transferred to bigger venues like the Chelsea Classic Cinema and the Kings Road Theatre. It even made its way to Broadway in 1975, though that run was short-lived. But the buzz was real. Critics and audiences loved its bold, irreverent style, and it caught the eye of producers who saw potential for the big screen. Enter the film version. Produced by Lou Adler, a music mogul known for working with acts like the Mamas and the Papas and Carole King, and Michael White, who had backed the original stage production, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was a joint UK-US effort under 20th Century Fox and Michael White Productions. The budget? A modest $1.2 million, which in 1975 dollars wasn't a blockbuster sum, but allowed for some creative flair without breaking the bank. That's about equivalent to around $7 million today when adjusted for inflation, but back then, it meant they had to be smart with every penny. Filming kicked off on October 21, 1974, and wrapped up by December 19th of that same year, a tight schedule of just under 2 months. The primary locations were Bray Studios in Berkshire, England, famous for being the home of Hammer Film Productions' classic horror flicks, and Oakley Court, a stunning Victorian Gothic country house nearby in Maidenhead. Oakley Court had been used in Hammer movies like The Brides of Dracula and The Reptile, so it brought that perfect, eerie, atmospheric vibe. They even reused props from those old Hammer films, like a tank and a dummy from The Revenge of Frankenstein from 1958, to save costs and add a nod to horror history. Post-production happened at Elstree Studios, where they polished the visuals and sound. Now, let's get into the crew who brought this vision to life. Jim Sharman, the director, was an Australian theater whiz who had already directed the stage show in London and Sydney. He co-wrote the screenplay with Richard O'Brien, adapting the musical while keeping its essence intact. Cinematography was handled by Peter Suschitzky, who later worked on films like The Empire Strikes Back, bringing a vibrant, colorful look that pops on screen. The editor was Graham Clifford, and the art direction came from Terry Ackland Snow, who created sets to feel both retro and otherworldly. Costume design was by Sue Blaine, and this is where things get really interesting.